Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to another update. Welcome back to a Friday night here. It is the Earthmaster on this end. February 23rd, 2024. It's about 10:10 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 2.8 up here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. We'll get to that here in just a second. Starting off here with space weather activity, still looking at 3590 here, the culprit of quite a few X flares, and of course the X6.3 that struck here, the strongest flare this solar cycle. It is still currently flaring. If we look on the UV filter right here, looking at some magnetic arches there going on within that sunspot core, looking at a decent chance of some further X flares. So we'll keep that in mind. X flare probability raised and elevated at about 30% chance. M flare at 70, and of course, C-flare around 99% chance or so. Looking at the current X-ray flux chart, see if we can pull this up. Hopefully we are we live once again? I get a little nervous when things freeze up here on this end. There we go. We've dipped, well, we're kind of in the C-flare category right now. There is that large X-flare that we seen yesterday, the X6.3. Still flaring a little bit. Although it's going down, doesn't necessarily mean that we are completely done with the activity. Let's take a look at here at 3590. There's the complex image, the magnetic image here. Still showing quite a bit of complexity within the center portion of the core. We'll continue to watch this. It's pretty much the only showstopper out here on the Earth-facing side of the sun right now. There's definitely a couple new sunspots trying to make themselves known here on the eastern limb, but right now this one is definitely upstage, front stage, and does have the possibility of producing some further X flare activity. Look at that image out here of 3590. That is a beautiful sunspot, and again, still shows a little bit of complexity there, and we'll continue to watch that for some further flaring. I mean, it's obviously peaking up right now. A little bit of bright features going on there with that C flare activity. As far as aurora possibility, it looks like maybe around the 25th or so we might see a glancing blow from one of these sunspots. I don't know if it's 3590 or not, but it looks like towards that time frame here. Let me pull this up. Watch the sun here. These are solar wind. There's a little bitty CME that was produced there. That's going to be arriving, or at least give the Earth a little glancing blow here around the 25th. That's the little green dot is the Earth. Not going to expect much, folks, from this event. Probably KP index around 4 to 5, even, I mean, if that. So, again, really not expecting too much activity in terms of the auroras, but a little enhancement there to the 3-day forecast. We'll continue to watch that. Unless we get something major, right? 3590 still harbors the potential for some X flare, and that's the culprit there of that elevated 30% chance there. Beta, gamma, delta, that is the ones that we have to watch out for in terms of a large flare activity. All right, earthquake activity here on the planet. There's that 2.0. Well, it looks like a 3.0. Where's that 2.8 coming in at? Looks like maybe EMSC reporting that as a 3.0. I'm not for sure why it's not showing the USGS on here, though. Either way, a little bit of activity here well off the coast of Northern California, the latest quake here in the region. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map out here real quick and see what we got for tremor. That is going to be not volcanic tremor, but Cascadia tremor down into the subduction zone. A little bit here, 47 epicenters of tremor, mostly underneath this area of Oregon. So really not seeing too much activity currently taking place. The rest of the earthquake activity across the across the state here, across the west coast, really not seeing any elevated movement. A handful of smaller quakes out there for now. Someone asking me, did we see any elevated events following all these X flares? Well, we did. Yesterday, we did see a 6.3 earthquake, just about immediately following that large X 6.3. Wow, look at that, 6.3 in the magnitude, And the X flare was a 6.3. Coincidence? Goodness. Hey, might be onto something here. Either way, yeah, we did see that activity stir up a little bit. But as far as any broad scale movement, yeah, we really didn't notice it. I'm kind of leaning more towards the impacts of CME activity, the pressure there on the magnetic magnetic field that takes place during the arrival of some heavy duty, solar activity in terms of CME activity. So we'll watch for that. I'm kind of waiting for a decent CME to hit, and then we'll go from there. As far as the rest of the states go, any earthquake activity going on here? Most of this is from earlier this morning. That earthquake activity down here in New Mexico early this morning, about 1 o'clock, some oil fields out there. If you zoom in here across this area and check out the satellite view, this area has quite a bit of oil pumping operations out here and wastewater disposal ponds. Those are not swimming pools out there in the desert of New Mexico. Those are wastewater disposal ponds. Quite a bit of oil pumping operations going on out there, and they have been getting hit pretty nicely out here across Texas and New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Central Texas out here recently, so that will continue. That's a fact. Across the Puerto Rico area here, a handful of earthquakes, nothing major going on there for now. South America region, a couple earthquakes there from yesterday and today, mostly 4s going on down there today. Really not seeing anything major across the area. As far as any elevated movement, I guess we could say that has been occurring out here across the western areas of the Filipino plate and up here along the Kurokamachaca Trench, right? That's an area we got to keep a close eye on. I think that's pretty well primed for some large earthquake activity. So looking up here, we did see a little earthquake here from last night. I think this deeper activity is a little bit further south here. Look at this earthquake here. 405 kilometers deep into the Izu Trench here. That is a deep one for that 5.3 earlier this afternoon. We'll have to watch regions upstream for some further movement. Here's an earthquake just off the coast, east coast of Japan, 4.5, somewhat deep here into the Japan Trench. A lot of deeper activity stirring up out here, so we definitely got to watch for some further movement upstream here across the area. Remember that big time swarm out here last year? I think it was last year, right? I can't remember exactly which month. It was the Izu Trench swarm. There wasn't a whole lot of earthquake activity downstream, but it was at the surface areas, just a bunch of earthquake activity. And really, it was an interesting event. We'll have to cover that a little bit later, but for now, that region is quiet. Across this area of Tonga, Kermadec Trench area, fairly quiet. The only earthquake here, at least on the USGS map, is from last night. A look at the EMSC model here, fairly much in agreement. So this whole area has gone awfully quiet. Aside from a 3.0 South Island area, definitely keep an eye on this region. Now that we're seeing further activity out west here, that should apply further strain out here across the western area of the Pacific Plate. Think about it. When you get some movement out here across the Filipino plate, obviously the GPS coordinates, the arrows here tend to point where the Pacific plate is building up steam, building up stress, and that would be this area out here where it's currently quiet. So keep an eye on that overnight. Some deeper quakes going on here into the southern end of the Kermadec or the Java Trench. So we'll continue to watch that as well. Got a little earthquake activity up here in China. I think that movement is from earlier. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it looks like earlier this morning, late afternoon here, my time. One earthquake out here in the southwest Indian Ridge. That is a divergent zone. Look at that zipper pattern going on there, out there in that area. Not a whole lot going on through the Atlantic Ocean for now. Let's go ahead and check out Iceland. I know I didn't cover that here the last couple updates. Definitely got to stay on top of that because I think accumulation of magma is continuing. There's a little bit of earthquake activity out here across the Reykjanes Ridge region, the peninsula. Not a whole lot there across Grandavik. Just a handful of earthquakes going on out here. We're looking at about 16 earthquakes in the last 12 hours. Nothing major for now. Let's go check out the latest informational statement here from the Icelandic Meteorological Office here. Magma, this was put out, well, it looks like this was put out today. Magma volume beneath the Svartsengi area reaching similar level as prior to the last eruptions here. So looks like, we could be seeing things kick back up. Looking at the inflation here, and in terms of volume accumulation, in terms of magma, these are the previous amounts. Of course, there was a pretty decent one back there in November, December, leading up to that eruptive activity there northeast of Grindavik. The latest inflation event is showing this one right here in the purple category. We're kind of at a lower level right here. See that? Compared to the previous levels. But I don't think that's going to, stop any eruption activity. But looking back here, the big one was back in November, December, this blue line. Our most recent one, the yellow. So this is going to be the most recent one. So the volume pointing towards, obviously magma underneath the area. Model calculations here indicate that approximately 5 million cubic meters of magma had recharged to the Svartsengi reservoir as of the 22nd of February. Considering this trend, right, we've been looking at a trend of about 30 days for a reoccurrence interval there between eruptive activity. The likelihood of an eruption is very high once the volume reaches between 8 to 13 million cubic meters, right? You got pressurization going on down there. So basically what happens when we get the eruptive activity, we're at a pressure level to where the ground cannot handle any more pressurization. So we see a fairly dynamic view of magma and lava fountaining and whatnot going on for about a day or so, and then it subsides. But we're not depleting the entire magma below the area. So it takes a little bit to accumulate, but it's been at a 30-day interval between eruptions, it seems like. But it looks like we're getting close here to maybe seeing a new eruptive activity take place there across the region. Looks like the areas of interest still remain around Grindavik northeastward across this area where we've seen previous fissure activity. Let's check out the inflation activity there across the Svartsengi region, see what's going on. Obviously we're still seeing some elevated activity here. This is the 4-hour run, and still showing up here on the vertical displacement there across the Svartsengi area. The 8-hour runs around Grindavik. Let's go check this out and see what's going on here. Grindavik is going to be right about here, and still showing an inflation trend there with the 8-hour run. So pressurization is still continuing there. I think, and I've kind of monitored this here in the past, that we'll see elevated earthquake activity out here. Obviously, most of the time it's been about an hour to half an hour before we see eruptive activity take place prior to any huge earthquake swarm going on out here. But the days leading up to the eruption, it seems as though we see these divergent boundaries more active, north and south here across the divergent zone. So we haven't really seen that yet. I think once we do, then we'll see this activity really stir up out here, and the eruptive activity return here to the Grindavik region northeastward, hopefully. Hopefully we can keep that out of town. All right, what else we got out here? Anything major going on here? Let's see here. 4.2 there, coming into the Java Trench right now. That's kind of an area we really haven't seen any major earthquake activity strike here. Let's check out the last 30 days, see what we got. Not all magnitudes, just 4.5 and above. That's fairly minimal for a 30-day time period. So yeah, we just have that 4.5 coming in right now. I wouldn't doubt it. Something might be building out here. The rest of the plates here, obviously they filled in slightly, with normal earthquake activity. But this is one region here we haven't really seen any decent size earthquakes. I mean, a couple fours and whatnot, and now a 4.5. So watch this area. We may be seeing some elevated movement here take place soon, if not tonight. All right, Storm Prediction Center, severe weather. A lot of folks talking about severe potential here on day 5 and day 6 coming up. Day 5 is going to be on a Tuesday. Day 6, obviously, on a Wednesday. 15% chance being put out here by the Storm Prediction Center. We'll get closer to that as we get, we'll cover that as we get closer to it. It's a little far out. Looking at the GPS model out here, I got to show you guys this image here real quick. Let me go over here to the windy map and check out this satellite view. Very awesome looking low pressure system spinning off the coast here. It's got a beautiful comma shape. Well, unfortunately, that's really not going to do too much right now. But as we head into, you can see it kind of spinning off here off the Southern California coast. As we head into early next week, it looks like it may want to join a little bit here with a colder system coming down from the north. A couple of days ago, this was looking like a decent combination here of subtropical moisture and colder air coming down to bring a decent storm here to California. That does not look like the case right now. We might get some rain here in Northern California, Southern California as well, maybe a little bit of snow, but it doesn't look like that's going to be a big system here. And even this, well, maybe this one coming up here next weekend might be a little bit more on the potent side in terms of accumulation of rainfall and snow. Look at that. Decent amount they're coming in as we head into the first couple days of March. After that, well, it's anybody's guess there. It's a ways out. But the patterns here at least hinting at more precipitation out here across the West Coast. So we'll just kind of continue to watch that. The severe weather, again, across areas of this area. Cold interacting with some of the warmer air. That's typical severe weather patterns. We'll have to watch that, right? We'll cover that a little bit more as we get closer to that date. But 15% chance is far out. That's pretty decent. And if you didn't catch this earlier in my update, this article was put out here by the Washington Post. I kind of covered this on my morning update. AT&T, right? The cell phone outage yesterday. Obviously, it was not caused by a solar flare. We can put that to rest. And obviously, according to these guys, it was not caused by a cyber attack. They're stating in here that it was due to an application system that was in error, so to speak, when it was expanding its network, which affected more than like 1.7 million customers there on AT&T. I did see a couple of your guys' comments here and mentioned that you don't have AT&T, but AT&T also has some under companies, so to speak. I can't remember exactly who they are, but a few of you folks mentioned that your cell phone service weren't working either. So you might want to check and see if AT&T is the parent company of your cell phone service. But these guys are stating here. This is kind of interesting here. Customers from several other carriers, right, including Verizon and T-Mobile. I got T-Mobile. I didn't have any issues at all. Reported a smaller number of outages. Now, they're stating representatives of those companies said their networks were not affected, and that supposedly the reported outages may have come from folks that were trying to call their friends, which may have AT&T as their cell phone service. Cricket Wireless is also a form of AT&T. So that that could play a part in it. It's a little odd, definitely a little odd. But yeah, there's a whole lot of weird stuff going on in the world right now. I don't know what to believe, but these guys, stating that it was just AT&T and some of their budget carriers, such as Cricket Wireless and whatnot, that had the effects. And if you happen to be on T-Mobile, and some of your friends have AT&T, it may have seemed like you were having issues as well. This is kind of what they were stating here. So it's a little odd. It's definitely a little fishy in a way, but what can you do, right? Just be prepared and take note. Definitely take note. What else is going on here? I mean, we could be on here all night talking about crazy stuff that's going on here in the world, but I think we'll end it on that before we get too deep into the rabbit hole. Seismograph stations out here look fairly quiet out here right now. Not a whole lot going on. Mount St. Helens, a little spike of an earthquake, but that's about it. A couple areas, like I mentioned here, to watch. Java Trench here, it looks like it does want to move. But also at the same time, you got this area back building out here that has gone quiet in the last 24 hours. So we'll continue to watch that. Hawaii, there's not a whole lot going on out here currently taking place. There's only 8 earthquakes here. That's very unusual. And we'll just kind of see how this goes. Plate tectonics and whatnot have their days up and their days down. Right now, just kind of watching things. Got to watch the flaring, right? That is kind of a happening thing right now. Look at those magnetic lines. Beautiful, stretching way up here. Look at that. You can see some of those images, those arches going on. Yeah, this thing may pop off another decent X-flare. We'll have to watch that overnight. Again, 30% chance at least. I think it's got more of a chance of seeing that very soon. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have yourself a good night. Enjoy your Friday night. Stay safe out there. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. Take care.